In a world that is just constantly pulling us in a million different directions, what if the real path to peace wasn't about adding more to our lives, but about, well, training ourselves a little differently? Today, we're diving into an ancient guide for happiness that feels more relevant than ever. Think of it as a set of 10 trainings for a calmer, clearer life.
So let's just start with a thought experiment. What if life actually came with a manual? A clear, time-tested guide for navigating everything. Imagine having a set of instructions that people have been using and benefiting from for over 2,000 years. Well, as it turns out, a guide just like that really does exist.
And it's called the Tasikapada, which basically translates to the 10 trainings or the 10 precepts. Now, it's so important that we don't see these as a restrictive list of don'ts. That's not it at all. Instead, think of them as a positive, proactive workout plan for your mind and your actions, a plan that leads to some very real, very tangible results.
And their origin story tells you everything you need to know about how important they are. See, these weren't some abstract rules pulled out of thin air. This was the core curriculum that the Buddha himself created for his own son, Rahula. This was the foundational training he believed was absolutely essential for anyone starting on this path.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the 5 foundational trainings. Then we'll explore 5 more that are all about refining the mind. And maybe most importantly, we're going to look at how you can make this real in your life right now. Then we'll wrap up with a final thought. All right, let's get into those first 5 trainings. Think of these as the absolute bedrock of the practice. They address actions that are just inherently unskillful, things that cause harm to ourselves and to others, no matter the situation. Mastering these creates a really stable foundation for everything that comes next. Okay, training number 1. To refrain from intentionally taking the life of any living being. At its heart, this is about cultivating a really deep respect for all life and recognizing that every single being, just like us, wants to live and wants to avoid harm.
And the results of practicing this are pretty profound. The basic idea is simple. What you put out into the world is what you tend to get back. By extending a sense of safety to all beings, you start to cultivate a world where you, in turn, feel safe. And this leads to some real benefits: better health, relationships built on deep trust, and a life where you're not constantly looking over your shoulder. You're literally building your own security.
The second training, refrain from taking what is not freely given. And this goes so much deeper than just not stealing stuff. It's about cultivating a principle of deep, radical honesty and respecting the property and the hard work of other people. It's about building a world that's based on trust, not on taking advantage.
And check this out. This practice creates its own kind of reward system. I mean, think about it. When you're known as a person of integrity, people want to work with you. They trust you. They want to support you. And this just naturally leads to more opportunities and greater financial security. You're building a reputation that actually attracts abundance, and that leads to a life free from the stress that comes with dishonesty.
Let's move on to the third training, which is to refrain from sexual misconduct. This is, fundamentally, all about respect. It's about consent, and it's about not causing emotional or physical harm through our sexual behavior. It's really a training in creating relationships that are built on a solid foundation of trust and mutual care.
And this one brilliantly shows the social benefits. When we act with integrity in our relationships, we create this ripple effect of trust. People feel safe and respected around you, and that dissolves the roots of conflict before they can even start to grow. And the results are just powerful. You have fewer enemies, you're loved and respected, and you get this deep sense of peace that lets you sleep and wake in happiness.
The fourth training is to refrain from false speech. Now, this includes lying for sure, but it's also about slander, harsh words, and gossip. This is a real commitment to using our words for truth, for kindness, and for connection, because we recognize the incredible power that our communication has to either build people up or tear them down.
When you really master your speech, your words start to carry weight because they're backed by truth. People trust what you say, and that's the foundation of any strong relationship or influence. This practice also has this wonderful side effect of calming the mind, because you're not trying to keep track of lies anymore. And the text beautifully describes the result as having a pleasant presence, as gentle and welcome as the scent of a lotus.
And the fifth foundational training, to refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind and lead to carelessness or heedlessness. And this isn't just about alcohol or drugs. It can be anything that makes us lose our mindfulness. The goal here is simple:
to protect our most valuable asset, which is a clear and present mind.
So, the reward for maintaining clarity is, not surprisingly, a clearer, more capable mind. By training ourselves to stay present and not rely on distractions to escape, we're basically strengthening our mental muscles. This cultivates sharp intelligence, a reliable memory, and the diligence to actually follow through on our goals. You're building a mind that you can truly depend on.
Okay, so we've covered the 5 foundations of ethical action. Now, let's look at the next 5. These are less about avoiding harm and more about actively simplifying our lives to cultivate an even deeper sense of inner peace and focus.
Now, these next 5 are often practiced together, especially during times of really dedicated focus. They're all about simplifying our lives, sometimes radically. So, refraining from eating after midday to help digestion and quiet the body for meditation. Stepping back from entertainment that just hypes up the senses. Letting go of perfumes and cosmetics to reduce vanity. Avoiding luxurious beds that create attachment. And even refraining from handling money to simplify our worldly concerns. Now, it might seem a little extreme, but if you look closely, you can see they all point toward one single powerful goal.
And that goal is this: to intentionally reduce how much we engage with all that sensory stimulation and all those worldly concerns. By simplifying our external lives, we're essentially turning down the volume on all the outside noise, which allows our mind to finally settle down and our inner awareness to grow stronger.
Okay, this is all absolutely fascinating, right? But the big question is, how do we actually make this real in our lives today? I mean, this isn't about becoming a monk or a nun tomorrow. It's about understanding the framework and finding your own way in.
And the key is to see them in 2 different parts. The first 5 are what you could call universal ethics. They're the foundations for social harmony, and they're pretty much essential for everyone. The next 5, though, are personal disciplines. They're like an optional, advanced training for people who really want to go deeper and intensify their focus.
So how do you start? Look, don't try to be perfect overnight. That's not the point. Just choose one training from those first 5 that really resonates with you, or maybe one that just feels the most accessible. Then commit to it for just 24 hours, one day, and just see how it feels. Notice the shift in your mind, in your interactions. Then you can build from that success. It's that simple.
So, what's the big takeaway here? Is that these 10 precepts aren't some rigid moral code that we're supposed to judge ourselves by. Not at all. They are a practical, results-oriented training program for your own happiness and for the well-being of everyone around you. They are, quite simply, tools for empowerment.
And so in closing, I'd just like to end with a simple, heartfelt wish that is really the ultimate goal of all this practice. May all of you be happy. You know, this path doesn't begin with some giant leap. It starts with a single intentional step. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. Looking at this ancient manual for a happier life, which training will you start with today?